Okay, we're trying something new today. I am live at a place I like to use the internet. So I'm trying a new thing of going live, and we'll see how this goes. Don't really expect much, if any, people to show up because this is my first time and I don't have a lot of following yet. But let's just try it out. So the first thing I was going to talk about is that in John 2:6, atheists have, at least one I know of, have tried to claim that when Christ was at the marriage at Cana, I think it was, that when he turned the water into wine, which would be fresh grape juice, that it already contained basically powdered wine and he just simply added water, which makes no sense on the face of it because why would that be a thing? Why would that be written down? And their excuse is, John 2:6 says, "And there were set there 6 water pots of stone, after the manner of the purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece." And I was told firkins means like powdered wine. No. It means it's a measurement. A firkin is a measurement. Webster's 1828 dictionary, which I highly recommend and you ought to save as a bookmark, he knew what a firkin was. A firkin is a measure of capacity being the 4th part of a barrel. It is 9 gallons of beer or 8 gallons of ale, soap, or herrings. In America, the firkin is rarely used except for butter or lard and signifies a small vessel or cask of indeterminate size or of different sizes regulated by the statutes of the different states. So, there's the answer to that one. Let's see. Another one, and this one used to really trouble me. This one bothered me for a long time. And I'm telling you now that I do not believe in any contradictions or errors of any kind in the Bible. Now, when I say the Bible in English, I'm talking about the King James Bible and the Old Geneva Bible, but I'm not real familiar with the Old Geneva. Modern translations, fraught with error. I do not back them up at all. I burn them. But the King James says in 1 Kings 4:26, "And Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots and 12,000 horsemen." Okay, so 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots. But, well, the atheists would like to say but, 2 Chronicles 9:25 says, "And Solomon had 4,000 stalls for horses and chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the chariot cities and with the king at Jerusalem." So the one says 40,000, and the second one says 4,000. Which is it? Can't be both, right? Actually, it can, because they're both perfectly accurate. And the modern translations don't get it right. They thought, well, 40,000 is too many, so let's take off one little zero, and let's change to 4,000. And now in the modern translation, it'll say 4,000, 4,000, and one of those is an error now. In the modern day translators' minds, they thought this is to be a scribal error, adding one too many zeros, and therefore changed the words in the new translations. The problem was that both original statements are perfectly accurate. 40,000 is accurate and 4,000 is accurate. The modern translator's fault is both with their not translating properly of the sentence and also a lack of knowledge of Solomon's setup for his horses, and therefore a lack of biblical archaeology, because they don't know how to diagram a sentence. Apparently, just diagram the sentence and you will see that the stalls spoken of in each verse are different stalls. Just diagram the sentence if you still remember how to do that, and you'll find out it's 2 different types of stalls. The 40,000 is said to be for stalls of horses for his chariots, and the 4,000 is for stalls for horses and chariots. So with the 40,000, those stalls are just for horses. But the 4,000, those stalls are for horses and chariots. Why the difference? Well, I learned years ago that Solomon had 40,000 stalls for his horses. Then 10 horses would be hitched to one chariot, and both the horses and chariots were put into a stall. So figuring a 10-to-1 ratio of horses to chariots, it makes sense that the 40,000 horses only needed 4,000 stalls. when they were hitched up to the chariots. So it's kind of like a limousine service where they have the stall, all the different horses in the stalls, and when they're going to go to war, or they're going to travel, they would bundle 10 horses to one chariot, put that into another stall, and the guy could jump on it, take off. It gets really weird when you start seeing some of the chariots that have 10 men. I believe I read this, that this is still evident by the ruins of his stalls at Megiddo. If memory serves, I learned this from an Unger's Bible Handbook, UNGER, Unger's Bible Handbook, very nice thing to read. But the modern translators didn't know this, didn't have faith, and so they created an error where there was none and made both numbers incorrectly line up. So, those are two I can think of right off the bat. Hey, Zach, as to your question, what if you die and you devoted your whole life to a God who doesn't exist? Well, I don't really lose anything. I mean, I might lose out on heart disease and, waking up in a gutter drunk. Might lose out on, a nice death by cocaine or heroin, or, criminal activity or something like that, or a sexually transmitted disease. Those are fun, but, I'd probably lose out on one of those. What do you lose? See, if I lose something temporary, what you think of as the fun I should be having. But if you're wrong, what do you lose? So, I'll take my chances. But what the atheists don't understand is they think we rely solely on faith, whereas we don't. The seed is planted by faith. Well, actually, it's planted by election. But, God starts it. We respond. He causes us to respond in faith. And then that's just the beginning, is the faith. But then after that, we see proof. Things that some Christians will never tell unsaved people about that atheists won't. I have an atheist friend. He's a good friend, and there's things I won't share with him. It's too private between me and God. And some things I'll share with him, and he's kind of amazed. He's seen some things happen in my life, and he just can't understand it. But it's not something that it may begin for us with faith, with trusting in Christ, but it goes on from there. If a person matures and they begin to see proof, they begin to see where they're praying for specific, super specific things, and those things are perfectly answered exactly the way you need it. So, like, just as an example, I remember at my old church, there was somebody who needed some money, and they needed, I don't remember the exact number, let's say it was $154.26. So they're asking God, please give me $154.26 for my gas bill or whatever. And they come to church and they asked us to pray about it, and the church prayed about it. And I think it was like a week later, they come back and they just couldn't hardly believe it. They got a check in the mail for $154.26, but they hadn't told us what they needed. If I remember correctly, they just said they needed something. They just had an unspoken prayer request, or they needed some help with a bill or something. I forget what it was. It was not specific. And what happened was they got a check in the mail from somebody out of state, and the person wrote to them, here's $154.26. I don't know why, but God just impressed upon me that this is the number I should give you. And it was something where they had asked for prayer, but they hadn't spoken about what it was. And yet it was answered identically. And I don't think they shared it with anybody. It was just like a private bill, like a gas bill or something. And they couldn't make it in time. I've had things happen in my life, such as, like one time I needed a TV. I had a TV and it went bad. Didn't have the money for another one. If I remember correctly, I was praying for one, and my sister says, "Oh, well, there's one down in our village that we live in, but it's laying out in the rain. It's been raining on it. Somebody's throwing it away. Maybe it'll work." And if anybody knows me, they know that I'm given things that other people say it's broken. I take it home, it works perfectly fine without me doing anything to it. So I get over there, and there's this enormous TV. I don't know what, 50, 70 inches, I don't know what. It's huge. It's laying next to the gutter, soaking wet. She and I go over, pick it up, water pours out of it. What idiot would take that? Me, because I know God. I took this thing, took it to my house, laid it on the front porch, let it drain out. A couple days later, I brought it in the house, plugged it in, works perfect. I use it every night. It is huge in my room. It is like, I think it's got to be in the 70-inch range or so. I mean, it's massive. So I actually went back to the guy who threw it away, and I mentioned it to him, and he said, well, I threw it away because it broke. It wouldn't work. Stuff like this, if it happens once or twice, okay, that's rare, that's interesting. When it happens again and again and again and again and again, especially if it happens after you've specifically asked for it, and then that thing happens, somebody's answering you. So that's just one of the little things of what a Christian can have proof in his life. You want to see a pretty good example of a Christian's life is watch the movie Facing the Giants, and how he's crying because so many things are answered in his prayers that are specifically answered. That's a Christian who's trying to live for God, who's becoming spiritually mature. That's what their life becomes like. Things like that, things that don't make sense. Yes, I've had people give me cars. They were given offers to buy the car, and they said, no, I'm going to give it to you instead. Why? I barely knew the woman. But things like that happen over and over and over and over again. Atheists don't have that. If they have it occasionally, a little bit, that's called random chance, that's called, well, that's interesting, whatever. But when it happens on a regular schedule, when it's like, I need a backup hard drive, and you go somewhere and someone gives you a backup hard drive. Hey, I have this backup hard drive. I'll never use it. You can just have it. If it happens once, that's okay. But if it happens regularly, things like that over and over and over again, that's when it goes from faith to you start having proof. You start having evidence. And enough evidence piles up, then it's not simply just relying on faith. So I think I got 3 viewers. That's kind of cool. I didn't expect 3. But this is my first try. Sorry for the sound. I've got a vent above me that just kicked in. So have a good one, and I'll plan to try this again some other time. Thanks. This is the awkward part where I try to hit the end button.